Well, LSU fans and the Go 24/7 family, we welcome you back here into the Go 24/7 podcast. My name is Bryce Kuhn alongside Glenn West. And Glenn, it's another week. We're on this, I guess, in the beginning, we could say, of an SEC stretch that'll determine what happens in LSU's season as they head on the road to Arkansas, up to Fayetteville. You're going to be at the game. I'll be holding it down back here in Baton Rouge. This game's important, Glenn. It cannot be overlooked. Each week cannot be overlooked. That's been a theme this week. Let's kind of open it up and talk about maybe some of the challenges that Arkansas just poses for this LSU team. And I think one of the biggest things is maybe not so much of Arkansas, but yourself and in your own mind in terms of LSU. You can't let the emotional high of last week carry over into this week.
Yeah, I think it's extremely important, and we talked about this last week in the preview pod with Ole Miss, and we both thought that LSU could win that game and win and prove that they could be a big time game winning team. And they proved that to be true with a fantastic late game comeback there against Ole Miss. But we also said that it doesn't mean anything if you don't follow that up the next couple weeks with wins over Arkansas and Texas A&M, and I still believe that to be true. This is what we've learned about the SEC through the first 5 weeks of conference play for a lot of these teams is that no win is going to come easy to a road team. I mean, they are walking into a very hostile environment in Arkansas, and it's one where, yeah, you probably have the advantage talent-wise, but this Arkansas team always seems to play up for LSU. They always seem to get the extra juices flowing for this matchup. They do not like LSU. They make that very clear, Arkansas fans. And unfortunately, Bryce and I didn't get the memo. We're both wearing red today on our LSU preview podcast here. So that was a miss the ball whiff on us. But, I think that this game is it's always so tight. It's so competitive. Sam Pittman's going to have these guys ready to play. And I think they've been one of the surprises so far in the SEC. I mean, I don't think there were very many coaches in this conference that were on a hotter seat going into the year than Sam Pittman, but credit where credit's due. They're 4-2. They're doing a really nice job of being competitive with all the teams they play. Obviously, a couple weeks ago, they had a huge win. I believe that was the Tennessee game, right? They beat Tennessee. Was that the one they beat? Or was it Missouri? I keep getting teams flip-flopped. A&M beat Missouri. Arkansas beat Tennessee. So, they've proven that they can beat, a top 10 team in the country when they come into their place. So, this is going to be a real mental test, I think, for LSU in terms of, are these guys legit contenders, or are they kind of more on the pretender side? I mean, they played 3 big games this year. I don't know that we can confidently say that they played their best ball in any of those 3 games. The USC, South Carolina, and Ole Miss games. They've made plays in the South Carolina and Ole Miss games when they needed to, and they were able to scratch out some really tight wins. I don't know how long you can keep playing with that kind of fire and expect to really kind of cruise through this conference with a really good schedule or with a really good record. So there's a lot that I think this team has to prove this weekend on the trip up to Fayetteville. And it's kind of what you like about this time of year. It's getting a little chillier. I don't know if folks have walked outside the last couple of days, but I walked out this morning. It was 45 degrees, and I was walking my dog, and I was like, wow, this is football weather right here. We're in the heart of football season. This is crunch time football right now. So this is an extremely important next 2 weeks, and certainly it starts on Saturday evening in Fayetteville. And, that crowd is going to be really into this game, and LSU is going to have to overcome some things. So, I think what this team has proven is that they can fight through adversity when they're not playing their best, but there's a lot of things in this game that could potentially trip them up, and they've got to be ready, I think, from a mental side and from a focus standpoint to not allow those things to creep in so they can get out of there with a win.
Glenn, a lot of teams, and we've talked about LSU, feels like every single week has faced adversity. The most, I'm trying to think of the game where there was the least amount of adversity.
I mean, the cleanest game they played is South Alabama. They were that was a clean game. They started out fast. They were able to dominate early and kind of cruise to a win. Everything else has been a slugfest. I mean, even against UCLA, which was a double-digit win, you only beat them by 16 points, and that's a team that's only won 1 game this year. So, there's every single game this year has been some kind of adversity for LSU that they've had to overcome. Sorry, didn't mean to cut you off.
No, but what you just said, there's something to say about that if you want to take the positive route, I think. And Teams face adversity. We've seen it here in 2024 so far, Glenn, and they don't end up with the win. And so you have to have this conversation. Yeah, we're battle tested, but we got a couple battle scars, and obviously LSU has the loss to USC in the beginning of the season, which feels like a year ago at this point. But they've been tested at South Carolina. They've been tested at home against UCLA. They've been tested now against Ole Miss. The biggest calling card that we're starting to see, and maybe I'll say this too, is that they're winning these games. They're being tested, but they're winning. And I think that's the difference that separates right now LSU from a lot of other teams in college football is that, yeah, it doesn't look pretty all the time, but they're still finding ways to win. And I wanted to even add on this before I kind of throw it to you here. Brian Kelly was obviously, and people can joke about it. You were obviously there, the slamming of the table and the water bottle memes and all that kind of stuff out in Vegas. But I think I understand why he was frustrated because last Saturday we saw what this team was capable of when they play up to their standard and their ability, and they stick to the plan. They believe and trust in the coaching and like I said, the plan is this is a team that can accomplish a lot. So I wanted to get your thoughts because even despite all the adversity and what they're going to face on Saturday, I think LSU fans should feel maybe a little comfortable with the fact that hey, we've gone through a lot, in this first month and a half of the season, but we're still sitting here at 5-1 with everything we want in front of us. And so being battle tested is one thing. Being battle tested and still winning most of those games is a whole different animal, and it's a category LSU sits in with not a lot of other teams, especially in the SEC.
Yeah, I mean, you set it up there well. I don't know that I could really add on much to that. I think that's a really good point there. I do think, just kind of looking at this matchup there, I mentioned there were a couple things that, could potentially trip this team up. And
Yeah.
I think probably the one that, I'm a little bit concerned with have been the turnovers offensively. There's been 5 turnovers in the last 2 games in the South Alabama and Ole Miss game. You've had 2 interceptions from Nussmeier that have not looked or I should say 4 interceptions when you combine the 2 games. But the 2 really in the Ole Miss game were ones that came at crucial times in the game where you really couldn't afford to have them. And then there was, of course, the fumble there. And I think the story is that the defense was able to help you alleviate or overcome some of those turnovers that you had, especially the ones kind of deep into your red zone. I think they forced a turnover on downs on one of those turnovers that from the offense, and then I think they also forced a field goal or maybe it was a 3 points or something. I can't quite remember what the the result was in terms of that the series right after the interception or the fumble, but you can't go up to Arkansas and be careless with the ball. Like they
Yeah.
have got to play. This is not an Arkansas defense that forces a lot of turnovers to begin with. They're pretty good technique wise. They're good at getting off the field. They're number I think 34 in the country in total defense going into this game. So they can get off the field. They don't allow a ton of yards, but this has also not really been a playmaking defense so far. And so if you make them a playmaking defense on top of the fact that they're good at getting off the field, then you're really at a disadvantage. So
Yeah.
I think it's really important for LSU in this offense to kind of get those turnovers under wraps and see if they can't get out of there with a pretty clean game. Just continue to move the sticks, continue to push the ball forward. They did not, I don't think, do a great job of getting Mason Taylor involved in that game against Ole Miss until
Mhm.
really that last fourth quarter drive there, and you just saw how much of an impact Taylor can have on an offense when you're looking for him, and he's able to turn up some big time plays and big time situations. So I think it's going to be important to get Mason Taylor a little bit more involved early in this game. I think it's going to be really important from a defensive perspective to run fit well. I think this is a huge game for Whit Weeks and Greg Penn. This is not a Arkansas offense that will kill you through the air. I think from at least a scoring perspective, they've scored 25 touchdowns this year, and 20 of them have been rushing touchdowns. So they do not throw a lot of passing touchdowns. They're capable of throwing it, and they will to keep the defenses honest. But this is very much a run-first offense. They lean on that offensive line to open up holes, and it's going to be really important for LSU's front seven to continue to build on what they've started. Really, I think, finding themselves a little bit here over the last couple of games of showing some more consistency in the run game and allowing the pressure that they continue to have really affect the back half of the defense and the success that they can have as well. So
Yeah.
really important game for I think both sides of the ball, because I do think there are areas that they haven't been very efficient in the last couple of weeks that Arkansas could look to take advantage of. But if they're able to get out of there pretty clean offensively from a turnover perspective, I like their chances to continue moving the ball and score, and get into some prime scoring opportunities. And then from a defensive perspective, if they can limit the run game and kind of shut that down, it really kind of takes Arkansas out of probably what they want to do offensively. So those are probably two of the keys that I have for this game. I'm curious what maybe you have looked at this matchup this week and have picked apart in terms of what is an important matchup or just
Yeah.
key to the game for you.
Yeah, no, I mean, and we talk about a lot about this, and but really before LSU's defensive effort against Ole Miss, I think a lot of us thought, well, LSU's best shot at winning is going to be, and this is an adage that coaches and players and fans and media use a lot, is sometimes the best defense is an offense. The idea of ball control. Arkansas controls the tempo, controls the ball for an average in their games of 33 minutes per game. So they hold on to the football. They are number one in the SEC in third down efficiency, eighth in total offense in the entire country. So to your point, it's not an offense that is going to, I think, wants to get into a track meet with you. I was talking with someone that said the other day, and they said Sam Pittman in Arkansas, Bobby Petrino's done some good things with that offense and Taylor Green this year, but they're still the same program that wants to drag you down into Fayetteville for a rock fight, and that's what they want to do. I mean, that's the bread and butter of a Sam Pittman led program and kind of the identity. So those numbers that I kind of laid out right there. I mean, I think that LSU's has to be efficient. We can't see a lot of third and out, three and outs in this game. I think because if you give the ball back to Taylon Green, whether he's at 100% or not, or even the young redshirt freshman Malachi Singleton, who's a dynamic player in his own right, being able to run and throw a little bit as well. So those factors, Glenn, is LSU's defense is good, and Arkansas's offensive line, while better than it was last year, hasn't faced anything. I mean, A&M's pretty close, probably, but but to the effect of what LSU can do on the front seven front. So I think this is a game where LSU's offense just needs to have a clean, efficient game, and that might be duh, Bryce, but they really need this because I think if you start getting sloppy, that really tilts the game in favor of Arkansas. They want
It's,
this to
it's
be ugly. They
yeah,
want this to be something that where they could just say, "Hey, it's sloppy, it's physical." LSU feels like they're maybe beating their head against the wall trying to get just a first down. And I think that plays into what Sam Pittman, Bobby Petrino, and this Arkansas team want, which is okay. Well, you give us a 3 and out, we'll have a 9 or 12 play, 71-yard, drive. And it might only result in a field goal, but your defense has been on the field now for 8 minutes. And that takes a lot out of a defense that is rising, in my opinion, for LSU. So I think ball control, like that's the biggest thing to me. Stay on the field, because Arkansas is going to want to limit how much Nussmeier is able to be on the field. That has to be a key. And Trey Biddy talked about that with Hog Sports on the podcast yesterday. So that's kind of where I say, Glenn. I mean, ball control, stay clean, because the second this thing gets sloppy, that's when I think LSU fans might get a little worried.
Yeah, no question. And, I think it's important to bring up from an injury perspective offensively. You're going to be getting CJ Daniels back in this game. I think he offers you something. And look, I just keep thinking that this offense is not quite operating at its optimal efficiency. Like I think that they are
Mm-hmm.
still a couple of gears that they can hit here to really be getting closer to their 100%. And so I like CJ Daniels coming back in this game. I think he's due for a big game here soon. I don't know when it's going to be, but they've got to try to get him vertical. And then the other guy that I'm really interested to see, and what Brian Kelly kind of hinted at earlier this week, is that they're going to be moving Trey'Dez Green into the offense a little bit more consistently, getting him some more snaps, maybe a few more targets for him in the red zone. I think this is an LSU offense that we talked about early in the season. For the first 2 or 3 weeks, they struggled really converting touchdowns in the end zone, and it sometimes was because they went for it on fourth down and couldn't get a yard. It was other times it was some really rough play calls and just not executed play calls.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what we've seen here over the last couple weeks is this team, when they have had red zone opportunities, they've been converting a lot more consistently here. So I'm
Yeah.
very interested to see kind of what LSU is able to do in that respect, because when you do move the ball in Arkansas, you've got to make sure you punch it in and try to punch it in for 6. I mean, if you get held to field goals in this game, I think that's kind of what Arkansas wants to do as well. Is that I think
Yeah.
they understand that LSU's offense is pretty pretty good and can move the ball, especially through the air on them. But if they can kind of muscle up and keep LSU from getting in the end zone, I think they'll take that 10 times out of 10. So it's going to be really important for LSU to spread the ball out, get these guys involved, make them unpredictable in terms of who you're going to on a particular play. This is a big game for the offensive line. I think this Arkansas defensive line does, like I said, doesn't create a whole ton of negative plays, but it's physical and it'll get up in
Yeah.
them. And that starts with Landon Jackson and the motor that he has. So it's going to be really important for LSU to try to find some balance offensively. I mean, we keep saying we want to get this run game off the ground. They've been working on it for several weeks now. Um, Brian Kelly says it's a offense wide issue. It's not just a one specific position room issue, which is just a whole lot of nothing for us when we're trying to figure out what it is that he wants or what he's trying to say about the run game. And I think at the end of the day, what he's saying is we just do not have a good run game right now, and
Yeah.
they've got to figure out some way to balance this thing out a little bit because a lot of pressure is on Nussmeier and these pass catchers right now. And so if they can get Caden Durham or Caleb Jackson or Josh Williams, breaking free for 6, 7, 8, 9, 10-yard chunk yard plays, that's kind of the optimal way I think this offense can have some success in this game. So I like LSU to score in this game. I think that they should be able to move the ball on Arkansas's defense, but it's going to come down to protecting the ball, not giving this
Mhm.
Arkansas crowd any extra momentum, or this Arkansas team, I should say, any extra momentum, and believing that they can stick around and hang with this team. So uh, this game has been decided by 3 points each of the last four contests, and that's not breaking news. It's been probably the headline of most stories this week that you've read from any publication that's out there looking at this matchup. It's going to be a close one. It's going to be tight. It's probably going to be a little uncomfortable at times if you're an LSU fan watching from home. So it's going to be really important that LSU plays clean football, and when the opportunities are there to make plays on both sides, that they do so, and that they get out of there with a win. And I think if they win this game, I think you really can start to feel good about their chances of holding their momentum and being able to go into SEC play here with all their goals in front of them and being able to compete for a playoff spot.
Yeah, I've said that this is not the ultimate test. There's still hard games on the schedule, especially next week in College Station. But this is a test of just like the mental fortitude of this team.
Yeah.
I think that, you see so many teams, and like we've mentioned across college football, that, they get the big win. And what does Vegas do? Everyone starts to cash in on the other team to say, hey, this is your letdown. This is the letdown game of the week in terms of the emotional letdown that could come from that. But, Glenn, I kind of got the sense from the players that they understand. Like they get this. This is and Brian Kelly answered this question on Monday. We'll go here and then we'll get to our predictions. He was kind of asked about, do you remind the players of what happened 2 years ago, Glenn? I wasn't on the beat, but as an SEC fan, I obviously watched what transpired after LSU beats Alabama and kind of that emotional letdown. I do agree with Kelly's sentiment that this is mostly a veteran team. Like in terms of the mindset, I mean, I know Garrett Nussmeier, and it's crazy to think about. He's played what, like 9 full games
Yeah.
as a college quarterback,
7 or
but
8.
he's been
Yeah.
around the game so long. He gets it. The two tackles that you took into that game 2 years ago, those guys are, have what this offensive line has, what, almost 130 combined, starts between all 5 of them. So I just get the sense that, like, maybe I'm being too optimistic, Glenn. They're not going to get overwhelmed. They understand, like from a mental standpoint, that this group gets it. Is you tell me, is that just me being hopeful? Is it wishing a little bit that this group takes care of business, or did you get that sentiment from talking to players and kind of hearing what BK said earlier this week?
No, I got that sentiment. I think that these players understand what it's going to take to go in there and get a win. I mean, look, Josh Williams has been a part of this game now for 5 straight years. He's seen everything that this matchup has to offer, the good, the
Yeah,
bad, and the ugly. It's funny you mentioned Nussmeier. Really, the first big game where he had opportunities to play was against Arkansas as a true freshman, and he subbed in for Max Johnson there in the first quarter. Went and for 3.5, 4 quarters of and overtime. That actually it was a game that went to overtime and had LSU right there at the end, but they just offensively were just not very good in that game, got very clean, and they lost by 3 points, and that was kind of
Mm.
what kicked off the 3-point trend here over the last 3 or 4 years of this series. So it's going to be extremely important for LSU to get off to a clean start in this game. I think it's going to be important that just from a mindset perspective, that they just don't give Arkansas any extra motivation early in this game, whether it's an explosive play that the defense allows or maybe a turnover that the offense has. They can't have any of that. They've
Yeah.
got to go in there with the clean mind, and just try to handle business. I mean, I think this team is talented enough to where they can win this game. They can win this game if they operate at their best. I think they can win it by more than a touchdown. Like I think that this is a team that if it's executing and operating and playing complementary football, like Brian Kelly has wanted them to do all season long, they can handle this team, I think. But it's a lot easier said than done. We've said it from the stop here.
Mhm.
SEC has been very, very tough in terms of road teams going on the road and having success. So I think most here are expecting this to be a dogfight, a slugfest, a 4-quarter game of sometimes ugly football, sometimes football that might not be very pretty to watch, but I think in the end, what this team has proven to me over the first 6 weeks is that if it gets to a 4th-quarter game and it's a one-score game, or they have a slight lead, or perhaps they're tying, they've learned from that game one against USC, and they've learned how to close these games out. I think that they
Yeah.
have a mindset here that they can go in and they can win this game if it's a 4th-quarter game, and that's what I'm putting my trust in. Like I think that this game could very well be a 3, 4, 5 point game going into the 4th-quarter. And I like LSU to be able to come out of those games because they've done it several times here over the last month. And I think that every time you do that, it just gives you more and more confidence that you can execute when your best is needed. And that's what this team has done in crunch time here as of late.
You know, to your point, you mentioned you don't want to play with fire too much, but this team's starting to show that they can play with fire and still win. I think
Yeah.
that's one of the characteristics about this 2024 LSU team that I think is not fluky. I'm not
Yeah.
saying that you play sloppy all the time, but it's one of the things that they can get down and dirty and they can beat teams in different ways. All right, Glenn, it's prediction time. I know, obviously, for the written folks, people who tune into the podcast every now and then, they're going to see our predictions on Friday. But kind of your thoughts. Where do you go? The line's been jumping all week, kind of sliding and moving around. Where are you putting your hard-earned dollars?
Yeah, I like LSU to win this game. I have, when people might be watching this or listening to this, we'll probably have our preview and predictions piece out. But I have 30-24 LSU. I really think that here, if LSU does two things well, that they'll be able to get out of there with a win. And I think win with you going home thinking that they kind of controlled that game. I think it's protecting the ball offensively, because if they don't have any turnovers, I like LSU's offense to continue moving the ball and having some success. And then on defense, it's limiting the effectiveness of the run. I think that this Arkansas run game averages around 200 yards a game, I believe, on the ground between Taylor Green and the running back. I believe his name's Johnson. Is it his last name something Johnson or
Yes.
yeah?
Yeah. Yes.
So
Yes.
he's
His first name slips me. Yes.
yeah. It's something that starts with a J. I think it's a double J name, but I like LSU to get out of here with a win. I think that they understand the mindset that needs to go into winning a game like this, and I think that they'll be ready to play. And if they can find some balance, that would be perfect. If they can find something in the
Mhm.
run game that kind of works for them, I think we're at the point here where yes, Caden Durham has had some really explosive games, but I think you just got to ride the hot hand. If that means Josh Williams is able to spring free for a couple of big gains, I think you lean into him and whatever
Yeah.
he's doing right. I think if the same's true, if Caleb Jackson's finally able to get going, I just don't know that they have a great. They just haven't proven that Caleb is a guy that I think can handle 7, 8, 9, 10 carries and be able to have the effectiveness that they're looking for. That's just kind of where they're at right now.
Yeah.
So if I had to pick one, I would pick probably Durham. I'd lean Durham because he's done it on the road already this year. But I like this offense to move the ball. I like the defense to be able to get some stops, make some plays behind the line of scrimmage on Taylon Green, make him uncomfortable. And if they're able to do that, I like them to win this game in somewhere in that range of 5 or 6 points, and being able to kind of walk out of there with their heads held high, that they can control a game on the road and be a solid a road team here as they kind of move into the meat of their road schedule and conference play.
Glenn, yeah, it's like you read my mind. I was actually 30-23 was my final score. I mean, I sit, stretching out those points a little bit more. I think it's gonna be a physical football game. I think LSU's gonna be able to make a couple plays late to really kind of, distance themselves. I would even stretch it out, and I thought about it, Glenn, to like 34-23. Maybe this is a 31-23 game, and Ramos hits a clutch field goal with about 2 minutes left in the game to really kind of make it to a two-score game. I think LSU is the better team. I think that it's a opportunity to go on the road, like we talked about, to silence some of the critics that are still out there in terms of LSU, and really just kind of also prove to yourselves that hey, we can do this at home, we can do this on the road. Like it doesn't matter the place, doesn't matter the venue, time and place. We're there. Let's go play football, and it sets up for what is going to be should be a really good football game next weekend in College Station. But Arkansas is sneaky, and that's why I kind of titled that video the way I did. It's a sneaky, sneaky solid team. Bobby Petrino and that group's done a very good job. I mean, for lack of better purposes, I mean, Glenn, I mean, Sam Pittman saved his job. This is a
Yeah,
guy who was on the chopping block, and they would have to have a really, really bad second half of the season for him to get cut, and cut ties with him. So credit to Sam Pittman. I like Sam Pittman. I also say this: I love their defensive coordinator, Travis Williams.
he's good for the
Very
game.
energetic guy. Yeah, I mean, this is it's a good
Pittman,
staff.
yeah, Pittman's good for the game. I like having Sam Pittman around, and yeah,
Oh
he's
yeah,
he just seems like a good guy. I was talking with some people this week. He just seems like a good beer guy, like a good beer guy. I like to sit down and just kind of shoot the
crack a
talk a little
cold.
bit. Yeah, and yeah, I agree. I think it's good that he's still in this league and that they're playing hard for him. And that's the other thing. Like these players are. It looks like they're playing hard for him. Like they understood coming into the year that he was on the chopping block and that he was, if they didn't perform well, that he was probably not going to be long for that job. But to their credit, they've come out and they've played some really competitive teams. They've done a really nice job of beating the teams that they're supposed to and staying competitive with the teams that have been viewed as above them and ranked above them. So
Yeah.
like what they've done so far, and LSU knows that they've got a really physical matchup on their hands here.
I like it. I like it. Close one. We all think it is going to be a physical game. Glenn's going to be boots on the ground out there in Fayetteville for this one. He'll have all the coverage. We'll have great coverage over at Go 24/7. And if you want kind of a live reaction, we'll be live around 5-10 minutes after the conclusion of the game here on the YouTube channel. And then obviously you can see that or listen to that after the fact on all of our platforms. We appreciate you tuning in. Another week of college football. Glenn, we're over halfway done with the college football season. It is
Crazy. I did my
crazy.
mid-season grades,
Yeah.
my midterm grades this on Thursday. Y'all go check them out. I've already
Yeah.
had some responses that they don't quite agree. They think I'm being a little bit homerish here with the team, but
You know,
look, I encourage any friendly feedback, and we'll have a good time on the message boards because of it. So yeah, it's crazy that we're halfway through the year, or at least through regular season. So you hope that this is maybe just not quite the halfway point, that you have some
there
postseason
you go.
ball still in you. So, but for the regular season, yeah, it's kind of flown by.
Yeah, I love it. My sister-in-law's getting married in and around that first week of the playoffs, and I've told him, I said, "Hey, I might be having to fly back in because I'm not missing a potential LSU playoff game, whether it's at home or on the road.
Yeah,
That we don't want to miss that." So,
have the
Glenn
wedding
West,
before
I
the
mean,
game. Just have the wedding before
what
the game.
what were you saying?
Just have the wedding at the game. Just
Why
kill
not?
two birds, one stone. Whatever it is, just
Yeah, I
have it
like it.
right there outside the stadium in front of a 10,000 screaming drunk fans, and then just walk on inside for some good old football.
There you go. It'll be chilly. It'll be chilly, but it'll be fun. Glenn West, my name is Bryce Coon. We appreciate you so much for tuning in. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, like the podcast, and let us know in the comments down below. And like I said earlier, check us out on all those other platforms: Spotify, Apple, iHeartRadio, and all of those as well. We appreciate you, and we'll catch you next time here on the Go 24/7 podcast.